Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Season Ticket Holders. I'm your host, Dane Lillingston, and I have a new and very special guest with us today. He is a distinguished media professional who is currently a supervising producer at Fox Sports News. He's worked across the television landscape, including at Sky News as a producer and earlier as a broadcast monitor. He's also a West Tigers tragic who has painfully watched their games in the Fox newsroom for the last 5 years, but now he's finally starting to smile, except maybe for Saturday night. Will Fry, welcome to the show, mate.
Dane, thanks so much for having me, and it's good to see you, mate. It's been a little while.
I know you're on extended break and you do look quite happy, mate. So you must have been happy
Yeah.
with how the Tigers have been going.
Well, relatively, yes. There's a long way to go, but we've reached a few milestones in the last few weeks. Saturday night was a cracking match. Can't fault either team really. Unfortunately, the Broncos just had to pull it out. So if you got anything to read me about,
Well,
off you go.
sorry to hurt your holidays. No, we're going to save that for later, Will. Don't worry, mate. When I get new guests on, firstly, I just want you to tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what got you into the great game of rugby league.
Sure. So as you said, I'm a supervising producer at Fox Sports News, working with your good self and plenty of others. Yeah, it's obviously, as the name suggests, a supervisory role. Yeah, I'm not out there in the trenches like you are, battling with the coaches at presses or any of that kind of stuff. Much more of a behind the scenes kind of guy. Do a lot of spell checking and a lot of checking of other people's work. But the good thing is I'm in the office every Friday and Saturday night, and there's plenty of footy to watch.
I was going to say, if anyone knows what's happening with coaches and interviews and presses, you're the man, including when the Tigers lose. I have witnessed Will Fry performance during a Saturday night. It's a sight to behold, but it's passion, mate. It's passion, isn't it?
It is, yes. I do blow up the newsroom on occasions with a bit of a booming voice, but yeah, you know, we all do at some stage.
We do, mate. We do. Look, before we get stuck into the mighty Tigers and the incredible start to the year they've had, it's all happening at the moment, Will. We have to get stuck into it. It's finally happened. Shane Flanagan has departed, sacked, or mutually consented to leave the Dragons, however you want to look into it. Emergency press conference down in Wollongong Monday morning. The Dragons chairman and CEO announced that Shane Flanagan and the general manager of football, Ben Harron, have departed. Now, I spoke to Flanagan last week at their press conference. He said that he would never leave the club voluntarily, so maybe things have changed over the week. It obviously comes after a 7th straight loss. That was 30-12 against the Rabbitohs on Saturday night. Flano said in a statement, "I care deeply about this club and the playing group, and after discussions with the club, we agreed this was the right time for a change." Now, he took charge in 2024. He finishes with a record of 19-36, but comes only 8 months after they handed him a 2-year contract extension. Surprisingly, no interim coach confirmed at this stage. They reckon that will be announced on Tuesday when this podcast is released at a board meeting. He's obviously the second coach now, Will, in the NRL to be gone. That's after Seabold was only given 3 games. Poor Seabs. Heart goes out to Seabs. But that was 11 straight losses, Will. So very tough. Only scored 98 points this season, which is pretty shocking. Firstly, what's just the wash up from this? And in my opinion, did this come a couple weeks too late?
I mean, you could say it came too late. You're right, mate. I mean, they did have quite a bright start to the season over in Vegas. They just lost to the Bulldogs by a single point in the last, few seconds of that game, which I think was Stephen Crichton kicking the field goal. I think I heard reports in the media earlier that there was a couple of games that were key and they really needed to get a result from, that being, I think, Manly and possibly the one before. But I don't really know if Dragons fans expected them to go all the way this year. I don't know what their expectations were at the start of the season, but when you get to 0-7 and 11 losses in a row, a call's got to be made, and it's the CEO as well. So, obviously the power brokers at the club are not happy the direction that they're going in. So I guess they pulled the trigger, and we'll have to see what comes next. They play Anzac Day, of course, the traditional game, and it could be a tough one against the Roosters, to be honest, with no one seemingly in charge at the moment.
Mate, it's going to be very, very tough on Dragons fans as well. he said last week he hadn't lost the playing group, but just to give you a little bit of a timeline, it was only a couple weekends ago, Jaden Sewer told a WhatsApp group that he wouldn't be taking a player option. He told the fellow players. He's now facing 3 weeks on the sidelines for a shoulder charge on Cam Murray. I don't know how much he really wants to play for the club, if I'm honest, at the moment, from what I've seen from Jaden Sewer. The other one was Loco Pacifica Tonga, a prop waiting in the wings, a young guy, very publicly announced through his management on a radio show through Matt Rogers that he wanted out and wasn't getting any development. The only shining light out of this is Keon Kaloa-Matangi. He announced over the weekend, I will be there. That's because he signed a
Yeah.
5-year contract from next year. But there's been lots of chatter, right, Will, about this roster and this aging roster in particular. Brought in Clint Gutherson, Damien Cook, Val Holmes has been really out of form. They've had great careers, but I actually had someone on a presser last week, a fellow person in the media who I won't name, but they said, look, it's been a retirement village for a while, hasn't it? Has Flanagan just really got this roster wrong?
There was a bit of friction between himself and Ben Hunt, as you know, who's now ended up at the Broncos and looks to, still, I think he's injured at the moment, is he? But he's still got some footy in him. So maybe that was a wrong call from Flano. But yeah, the Tigers have copped that a lot as well as of signing aging players. And sometimes, if you're not a club that's in favour, you have to take what you can get, and it might be someone who's a little past their best. But they might still have a lot of leadership in them. I think Clint Gutherson's definitely he'll never not give 100%, So whether he's providing value, maybe off the field, yeah. I mean, they do have a few good players coming in. Kaloa Matangi, as you said, and whether Scott Drinkwater, whether they sign him or they're looking to bring in another fullback by the sound of it. So it might be brighter times ahead, but it looks like it's probably not going to be with Shane Flanagan in charge.
Mate, you're being very kind, Will. I can tell. You're being too nice. I,
We got to stick together sometimes. Some of us bottom feeding clubs,
well, mate,
It's all right being a Broncos fan.
yeah, I was going to say, I'll just come in off the top rope, off the back with you. You did bring up Ben Hunt, and I did want to mention that because I was at the presser 2 weeks ago when a lot of people thought this might happen when they were 0-5. And I do think, just for the record, it probably was a few weeks too late. I can't see any improvement in the side at the moment. But Ben Hunt, basically what Flanagan said about Ben Hunt was our star halfback walked out on us. Just early into his tenure, tried to get him to stay. Obviously, Ben Hunt was the heart and soul of that club for the previous few years when he was still there. Ben Hunt actually responded to the comments and said, I thought I was too old and had bad habits. So a bit of a
Right.
backhand there from Ben
Yeah,
Hunt
yeah.
on Flanagan and what he was saying. I just thought that was interesting. What he did have to say about Ben Hunt. I was going to bring that up with you. So whether he lost the playing group or not, it doesn't really matter now. Just from the fallout from the press conference itself, I did find some interesting comments. One was said that there has been a lot of media coverage of the Dragons over these past few weeks. A lot of it absolutely deserved, some of it poor, and some of it about personal agendas. I've been in media longer than most. Our coverage of this great game, of this great club, should be better. Readers, viewers, and listeners do deserve better. And I did hear this thing, Will, from Flano. He said, I wouldn't want anyone to go through what I've been going through because there has been a lot of heat, and I don't think the club did him any favors by letting it drag on for as long as it has. But you have to say, a club that's on a losing streak like this, how unfair can you be, really? Like, did you think there was any agendas, or do you think anyone was being too harsh on the Dragons, considering the run they've been on?
I don't think so. I mean, obviously he's going to hit out at the media, and a long losing streak is going to attract those sorts of headlines. But it comes for everyone. Like we've seen, Benji's copped it over his first couple of seasons in charge. There was talk of him, maybe taking too many holidays or that sort of thing.
Playing golf.
Um, yeah, playing golf, the sin that is. Um, and even, we've seen Michael Maguire, you win a premiership and you still can't escape it if you don't have a good performance on the weekend. So Flano, obviously he wants to take his shots while he's got the spotlight, but I think it's unfair, to criticize the media. Maybe it wasn't his fault. Maybe I think he did say at the start of the season he didn't quite have a roster he thought could compete, but in the end something's got to give. 11 losses in a row, you're going to come under scrutiny.
Yeah, that's right. And that was just coming from the board. That's what they said today. Now, I did ask Wayne Bennett because I'd already heard Flano's to sort of make some comments on it. And I asked Wayne Bennett last week, do you think the media can be too hard on coaches? and he laughed at me, he laughed at the question, and he said, "And now you guys want me to have a crack at you, do ya?" So in classic Wayne form,
Yeah, yeah,
basically,
yeah.
basically gave me a good explanation. He said something along the lines of, "They've been trying to sack me since the '70s." He went on to say something along the lines of, "I feel bad for coaches. I feel bad for coaches because once they sign, they've also signed their resignation." So he was in fine form, Wayne Bennett, and he did say, finish it off with saying something along the lines of, basically that he had no sympathy and that if you want to cry about it, this isn't the industry for you. So Wayne Bennett did not hold back at all in his thoughts about being harsh on coaches. And I mean, it's easy to say when you're Wayne Bennett, the super coach, right? But and the amount of premierships he's won. But I just found that interesting with that whole Flanagan situation, mate. Just to touch on it, to round it all out, obviously, who takes care of this team now? That's the big question. Full time, you've got the likes of Brad Arthur, who just missed out on PNG to Willie Peters. He's constantly getting thrown up at the moment as a potential coach. Any of those names stand out for you? Obviously, you'd have to think one of the assistants steps up. I thought originally maybe Michael Ennis would be the man. He was previously at Manly. He's in the chat to replace Anthony Seibold or Kieran Foran potentially
Mhm.
next year. You've got Dean Young, obviously, with strong ties and history to the club as well.
Yeah, look, they do have some strong candidates there, Dean Young and Mick Ennis. I think anyone who's watched Fox League knows that Michael Ennis obviously knows his stuff. He's played the game at a high level. Obviously, Dean Young's a bit of a club favourite. He played every single game of his career at the Dragons and won that premiership. I guess it comes down to whether they want to go with a new face, as one of those players would be, or one of those coaches would be, or whether they want to, Brad Arthur did do a lot at the Eels. I think he got them to a grand final. Obviously, couldn't break their premiership drought, but he's obviously got some nous as well. So we'll see what direction they go in, I suppose.
Obviously, it's a big job down there in Wollongong. They've obviously just opened their new performance centre. I was out there last week. Beautiful new centre, Will, attached to the
Sure.
University of Wollongong. Yeah, really nice facility. They do have a problem with the fire alarm. Apparently, when you hit the
Right.
sauna, when Flanagan went to start his press conference last week, he literally was about to get his first question asked, and the fire alarm went off. And I obviously had a field day and all the other journos with their packages that night because, as if there didn't need to be any more signs that Flanagan was in trouble, we all played that as the upshot going into it. Apparently, when you knock the sauna in their new facility, it sets off the fire alarm. I need to get that fixed. But
Yeah, right, right.
big job down there, mate. They've been sort of out of contention for a while now, not seen as a powerhouse they were back in those Wayne Bennett sort of a golden era he had there. What was that, like 15, 16 years ago now,
Indeed.
since their last premiership.
2010 was their premiership, yes.
2010, mate. So yes, 16 years. Wow, we're getting old, man.
We are.
It's been a long time, but yeah, a
Yeah.
big job awaits whoever takes that on. Fixing up the leaky retirement village, that's going to be a big challenge. But good luck to whoever takes that on. My grandma's team. Shout out to grandma up there. She was a Dragon supporter, so I'd like to see them do well. But a tough job for anyone involved. I'd just like to take a little moment to thank our sponsors, National Freight Management. They can handle all your freight from pallets worldwide, or sorry, nationwide. You can catch all the information on nationalfreightmanagement.com.au. We've got all the information on our website there, so go check it out. Give them some love. Now, Will, the Tigers, mate, you were first on the ladder last week. No one in hell thought that was going to be the case. Thrilling loss to the Broncos. Still a really solid start to the season. You guys are currently second. Defensively, much improved. But just to start off, mate, the tough one. Are we all getting too excited about the Tigers, or have you already bought your grand final tickets?
Look, I think we've already spoken about the media and how they like to run their own storylines. And I think even if we'd beaten the Broncos, I would have said that, look, let's not get carried away just yet. Obviously, there's a lot of milestones that we have been looking at as Tigers fans. We hadn't won 3 games in a row in a long, long time, and that's happened. And a win against the Broncos would have been 4 in a row, I think, for the first time since 2012. And I'm told that's the longest streak in premiership history. So obviously we've never beaten the Broncos at Campbelltown. We do have the one draw that came way back in our first ever game. So we're holding on to that 26 years later. But the Broncos, full credit to them, they came in with a lot of injuries and obviously lost Payne Haas and still did enough to hang on. A lot of defense in that game from the Broncos, and they just held tough. So these types of teams, obviously, they're the defending premiers, and they're the teams that we need to match up against. I thought it was a great effort from the Tigers. They were up for it from the opening whistle. And looking at my stats, I think they had about 400 more running meters, more line breaks, more tackle busts, fewer missed tackles. They scored the only try in the second half. They did have more errors and some crucial errors at the end there. But yeah, look, I think the Tigers, they're always going to be up for it, it seems, this year. There's a lot of confidence. But these big teams like the Broncos, Penrith, we're going to have to see how we go against them before we start buying grand final tickets for sure.
So you haven't got yours yet?
Not yet, not yet. My wife handles the ticketing business usually, so
Should be more
so
realistic.
I'll ask her. Yeah, she's not wasting the money just yet. Let's put it that way.
Good to know, mate. It was my first game of the year out there at Campbelltown Stadium on Saturday night. A bit of a chilly night, but awesome scenes, mate. 17,000 sellout. I know they asked some fans to stand up on the hill before the game to fit more people in. It looks like everyone.
Could you see, Dane? Could you see or no?
Luckily, Will, on the big bucks, obviously at Fox Sports, I
Oh,
was sitting
okay.
in the big grandstand. What's the big grandstand
Right.
called? Yeah, so I had a nice
Yeah,
view
right, right.
all the way down. I will say it was Danny, my partner's. Shout out to Danny. It was her first Broncos game. We both wore our jerseys.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she really enjoyed it for the most part.
Yep,
There was
yep.
a couple sitting next to her, a young boy and girl that didn't stop making out for a large portion of the game. So that was an interesting experience. I had
Yeah.
to assure that wasn't
What
normal.
jersey were they wearing? Or was it one of each or
Do you have to guess? It was a couple of Tigers fans, Will, from out there at Campbelltown.
Yeah,
Very passionate
yeah.
fans and very passionate in other areas as well. So it was interesting to see.
That's that's great.
Yeah, and look, but it was a friendly environment. We were both wearing Broncos jersey. I was repping my new premiership jersey. There was actually a lot of Broncos jerseys. I was quite surprised. A lot of
Yeah, it
support.
I was not there, but it did look like, yeah, there was plenty of Broncos fans there, yeah, on telly when I was watching on Fox League.
It was a good sight, man, and the atmosphere as well. Like it wasn't a bad atmosphere. Obviously, we didn't take it to the hill. I didn't want to chuck her too much in the deep end, Will. But she did enjoy it from the grandstands, and obviously, like you said, you couldn't have get a better game for your first game if you're going to go watch one live.
Absolutely.
The atmosphere is electric. Obviously, got quieter as the game wore on, but it was a thrilling finish to that game. Like I said, Broncos didn't score in the second half. 21-20. Adam Reynolds steers the ship, gets that field goal to wrap it up, but it was still that was still 10 minutes to go, right? Like it was still on a knife's edge. You guys really some crucial errors at the back end. There was just a few silly drop balls, and the Broncos defense, well, both teams defensively. I got to say, to me, it screamed finals intensity. I don't know if that's how you saw it, but I thought this had a real finals intensity to the game. And I did want to ask you, do you think maybe we got a bit of an early finals preview? Maybe not the grand final, but that's how I saw it. Did you get a similar feeling?
Yeah, look, I'm confident in saying, or maybe hoping that the Tigers will make the eight. Maybe top four is a bit too much at this stage, but it's been a bright start to the season. Plenty of games to go, but yeah, I agree that it seemed like the players were kind of on edge. Seemed like a bit of a finals atmosphere. But you did mention Adam Reynolds, and he really was the difference, wasn't he? He's another one of those old fellas that still got it, still got a great footy brain in his head. It was the two tries before halftime that really killed the Tigers, and we've been really good. Long-suffering Tigers fans will have been having nightmares when those two tries happen because it's been a fault of ours for years is that we kind of switch off just before and after half-time. But they were two just kind of genius plays from Reynolds. And he had the foresight to kick the one-pointer with, as you said, 10 minutes to go. I don't think any of the Tigers were expecting it.
No.
And yeah, he just popped it over, and it proved to be the difference. So good for him, and it's good for the Broncos to keep winning when they're down on a few troops as well. And some pretty big names.
I do want to say, I do have to shout out. I've been very nice to you. I got to shout out to the Broncos because they're calling it an all-time win. I know it must hurt, mate. How'd you feel? Was your heart broken a bit? I mean, honestly, watching the first half, I thought you guys were right on top. Obviously, like you said, those late points really hurt in the half, but the Tigers were all over them in that first half. And even in the second half, they looked likely, but I felt like every time they just had a bit of momentum, there was a silly drop ball, there was just a silly penalty, silly six again. And the Broncos just seemed to capitalize a little bit better. I was saying to the fans I was with throughout the game, the Broncos are really lacking a game breaker like a Reece Walsh to crack this game open. what did you feel just in those dying stages when it really was on the line?
I was heartbroken, Dane, thank you.
I've
Um,
been pretty nice.
it's to it's to be expected. No, we haven't seen each other for a good month, so, you've probably got some shots to get in. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, when we're talking about what level the Tigers are at the moment, I think it's shown again. We had plenty of ball in the right end of the field, and when it comes up the other end, the Broncos were just far more ruthless in getting the ball over the line and scoring points. I think that's one area that I'm sure that the Tigers will still be working on is our red zone attack. Sometimes we've obviously got Luai and Dewey in the halves. We've had Madden there while Luai was out. Bit of an unsettled playmaking combination. And yeah, we just seem to have a trouble in scoring points when we're down in the 20. You know, you'll find a forward gets the ball flat footed rather than running onto it and kind of looks around. And I mean, the Tigers and Benji, of course, have been known for their off the cuff footy. But it kind of seems like, you know, you'll see that the Tigers have had 75% possession and they're up by 8 or something. I think that was around the stats after the first 20 or so in that game. And you're like, look, we should have more points and it might come back to bite us. So yeah, there's plenty to work on still, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say just on to you guys first. The excitement in the Tigers is well and truly back, right? Kai Pierce Ball has been a revelation. I think I've read this thing about Benji really let him to be individual. There was a big argument that Paul didn't really get his chance at the Knights to shine with, I guess, his offloading and some of the attacking capabilities he has. He's come in and has been an absolute stud for you guys. He's kept a little bit quieter the other night, but he's been a really good pickup, right?
Yeah, Clive Pierce Ball has been excellent. I think it took him 2 or 3 games to score as many tries as he scored in his whole time at the
There
Knights.
you
So
go.
yeah, and he's getting offloads. He's part of a really revitalized forward pack for the Tigers, which I think has been the main sort of drive behind a good start to the season. We've got plenty of big boppers, you know, Terrell May, Fanor Bole, Alex Twil's probably playing the best he has. So we're kind of dominating teams in the middle sometimes, which is a bit un-Tigers like as well, you know. So Kai Pearce Paul's been part of that, Samuela Fino as well. Really the whole pack and RP as well around the ruck has been really great for us. So bright signs, but as I said, a little bit to work on still.
Mate, Alex Twal, I don't know what has changed this year, but he has gone from just sort of like a legend for you guys, but outside of the NRL, now he's getting noticed. The way he's been able to take his game to the next level. He's become a super coach gun, Will. You know, I'm a big
Oh,
super coach
okay.
guy.
You are.
He's exploded. He's a dual position front row, second rower, and he is offloading. His workloads has increased through the roof. He's become a real
Yeah.
player of relevance and obviously a character off the field who's seen his stuff with like Fletch and Heine in the footy show. He's a
Yeah.
funny character as well. You mentioned Jock Madden standing up. Adam Dewey, close to, I don't know, career best form, or at least in the last few years for him, the way he's been able to do it. Seems like Benji's master plan has really come into place. You got to confirm now, Benji can coach, right? That's no question now.
Well, I was looking at his win rate, and it's still, you know, he did come in at the very bottom for the Tigers. Couple of tough seasons there early on, so he's still, you know, not even approaching 50% win rate as a coach. But yes, I'm calling it. He can coach. I mean, I've had faith longer than most. Mostly, I'm just glad to see him around the club again. He's obviously a club legend. He did leave us on a couple of occasions, not really through any fault of his own. And yeah, it's great to see him around the club. He obviously loves the club. And I think he's been around enough good coaches of his own to kind of have soaked up a lot. Obviously, he was with Wayne Bennett with the Kiwis at first, and then at the Broncos, he played that grand final that South lost with Bennett. He actually his second stint with the Tigers began under Ivan Cleary, if people remember that. That was obviously before his 4 premierships, but maybe if you ask Ivan, he might say that taking those Tigers teams to ninth is about as hard as winning a premiership. So maybe ask him that next time you see him, mate.
I'll put that on the list just for you, Will. I'll put the response on the podcast. Yeah,
Sure.
it's been really good to watch, mate. They've become an exciting team, and yeah, no, I think Benji obviously came into a very tough situation with Sheens and the whole changeover and how it was all supposed to work out. But I feel like this year things have really fallen into place for him. He seems to be getting to respond. That was a key signing in KPP, like we talked about, getting Dewey in there, doing his thing, having a player like Jock Madden back at the club who can step up and fill that gap. Obviously, you guys were getting the job done without Jerome Luai. So it was pretty impressive what you can do. And I think you got a forward pack now that can match it with the best of them. You've got the few little pieces there with 12 stepping up. And I think you guys are going to go really far. Whether it makes the finals or not, I don't want to break your heart. I was just playing around with ChatGPT just before on the
Oh, here we
podcast.
go.
I did ask, give me your honest prediction. Will the Tigers make the finals in 2026? It's 2011, right, Will? Is that right? Is that the streak?
That was the last time we played finals, yes. 2010 and 11 were the good times relatively. And since then there's been very few,
I
as you know.
I do just want to give the response that I don't think the West Tigers will make the finals in 2026. They've started hot, which is great, but teams like this usually get figured out over a long NRL season. The Tigers
Mm.
still don't have the depth or consistency that top eight sides needs week after week, especially once injuries and origin hit. Finish somewhere between ninth and 11th. That's what the robots think anyway, mate. I'm not giving you my prediction.
No,
That's just
ninth,
ChatGPT.
eh? Ninth is quite a comfortable position for the Tigers. Historically speaking, we've had a lot of ninths. But as I was talking about before, there's milestones with, 3 spoons in a row. Last year was 13th. Ninth place would be an improvement again, and I think we can sneak into the eight. We do have obviously this Thursday at against Canberra at Leichhardt will be another tough test. Obviously, last year's minor premiers. I think they've strung a couple of wins together as well. And I think it's the Sharks away and then Melbourne away after that. So, the Storm seem to be struggling at the moment. They did beat us 64-0 in Melbourne last year. So, maybe that'll be a motivator for the Tigers. You hope they can improve on that scoreline at least. I think we can sneak into the eight. When you look at the ladder, obviously Penrith are out in front and the Dragons, as we've spoken about, rock bottom. And I think it's 4 competition points between the entire rest of the comp after that. So obviously, we're a quarter of the way into the season, so things will start sorting themselves out. But yeah, I respectfully disagree with you, Dave. Sorry, mate.
You mean the robot? But I will give you my prediction though. I am sorry, Will. I do think you guys will still miss the eight. I actually don't mind the ninth place finish. That's what I'm going to go with for now, only because if you did say how close this competition is, you've got Melbourne, which we will touch on a little bit later, down in 15th. You've got the Broncos, who are in ninth. The Bulldogs, who have hit a bit of a wall, they're in 10th. The Dolphins are going to be dangerous as well. Sharks are now back in at 7th. So I feel like this is a ladder where I think last year, this time, the top four was almost the same as it was at the end of the year. I feel like this is not going to be the same case this year. So I'm going to give you a ninth place finish, Will, just to break your heart. But we'll see. We'll see. Just on the Broncos, I did want to touch on pretty gutsy win. You got to say the amount of injuries they had. They had Payne Haas go off, and he's now looking at a few weeks off as well. Tony Staggs apparently played through, I think, a foot injury. Then you had Jesse Arthurs, the fill-in fullback. Of course, Reece Walsh still isn't there. Also had to go off late. And then
Mhm.
Pat Carrigan was suspended as well. So to get it job done, I've read they could be without 11 players heading into their round out clash. They take on the Bulldogs this weekend. They've been slapped with injuries. But just to hold on, like you said, I think the key really was Adam Reynolds. He was the man. I still, every time a South fan must see that, they must pull their hair out because he's still got it. And when he's not injured, which I know is maybe 30% of the time, he still knows how to control a game in these moments. Like you said, he just snaps that field goal with less than 10 to go, puts them on top. Maybe a lot of other playmakers wouldn't think to go for it that early in that type of field position. He just knew to do it. His fourth and fifth tackle options, the kicks that he puts in, the pressure he still puts the defense under. Still really good. So the Broncos, they've had a slow start, but they're slowly finding their feet as well. It's going to be interesting to see how this season plays out with the top eight. Will, was there anything else you want to touch on the Tigers? Because we want to get to our good or bad for fans section, but did you want to just put any little hope out there for West's fans and the rest of the year, mate? Holding on to your hope?
Oh, look, as I said, small steps, we didn't make the finals before '05, and then all of a sudden we're in the top four, and then we ran all the way that year. So, we've come from way, way down, Dane. Those wooden spoon seasons, obviously, winning the wooden spoon, you cannot get lower except if they bring a new team in, which I think did happen to us. Um, but yeah, we're building. We've got quite a young squad. There was a few that didn't want to be there that have now departed, and it seems like everyone wants to be there, wants to play for Benji. They're playing for each other as well. It's a real family atmosphere, and so there's brighter times ahead. It's not going to be a steep uphill. It's going to be a few steps forward and then maybe one or two back. But yeah, we can all see the light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully that's finals this year or next, maybe.
Very well said, mate. I love that, Will. I was spoken like a true Tigers fan. No, it's been great to see what Benji's done, and even if this year isn't the year, you'd have to think he's laid the foundation that in the next few seasons, you guys are going to be right there, thereabouts, and this is going to be a finals team that's just around the corner. Will, this is my favorite part of the show, mate. It's called Good or Bad for Fans, because we're all about the fans here on Season Ticket Holders. I'm going to say a statement, and you just need to tell me whether you think it's good or bad for fans, okay? The Melbourne Storm hit rock bottom. 5-game losing streak, the worst run since 2012. Is that good or bad for fans?
I think I don't need to say that if you're a Melbourne fan, it's not too great. Um, but I think most other fans would say, hey, it's your time down the bottom. I don't know when they last missed finals. It's probably been a while. Perennial contenders. It's time for someone else to have a go, and that doesn't have to be my team. But sometimes you need to sort out who the true fans are. Who's willing to go and watch their team lose. It's easy to go and watch your team win, but you got to support through the thick and thin. So we'll see if Melbourne can come out of it. I mean, who's doubting Craig Bellamy to kind of pull him out of it? There is 2/3 of the season to go. Whether the damage has already been done, they could possibly sneak in to the eight still.
Mate, I still think he can turn it around, but that 26-22 loss to the Raiders, I did watch that game and they did not look good. It's going to be a big challenge. And I did check while you were saying the last time they missed the finals on merit, of course, they got stripped those points in 2010 and finished last. But the last time on merit was 2002.
Right. That is, yeah, that's a while ago. So yeah, maybe the players are just itching for a September holiday, um, and they might get their wish.
A classic Bali Mad Monday. Coach Cameron Serrato joked he's going to need a psychology degree to work out how his team went from beating the Panthers to conceding 38 points to Parramatta. I don't think if you tip that, Jesus, you're the diehardest of diehard Parramatta fans.
Yeah.
Inconsistent Bulldogs / Serrato's university career. Good or bad for fans?
Look, the Bulldogs are not alone in that respect. There's been a lot of teams that have been up and down. As we said, the ladder is extremely close, apart from the top and bottom. But yeah, I heard Greg Alexander say during that Bulldogs Eels match that if they were racehorses, you'd be swabbing them, because it's been up and down for both those two teams and plenty of others. The Eels just got hammered by, I think it was the Titans, 40
Yes.
point loss or something the week before. No one thought anyone was stopping the Panthers, and then the Bulldogs they just dominated them. And I guess maybe it's hard to get up after you've just knocked off someone who had already been crowned premiers by some people. So yeah, it's I mean, that's a coach's job, right? He's got to work out why that happened, and hopefully get them back on the straight and narrow.
Mate, 38-20 Sunday afternoon footy at Combank. Incredible score. Tipper's nightmare. It must be a graveyard out there this week. Will, I don't know if you saw this one during the week. The NRL's buying stakes in Super League clubs to develop its players. So an idea that's been floated. It would involve player development swaps so that players could potentially play in Super League or vice versa, play the season over there, but owned by an NRL club. I think the Roosters own a club in LA, I think I read. To be able to do this, there's obviously always been this ongoing chat that the NRL might buy Super League outright one day because of their struggles. But that idea, good or bad for fans?
Look, I think if the NRL has the cash, then yeah, go for it. Start investing. We really want it to be a global game. Obviously, there's been the push into the US and Vegas, and they're talking about many other places around the world. And I think we've got to keep England strong. They didn't do great in that Ashes series at the end of the year. They do have plenty of really good individual players. I do love watching the old late night Super League game on occasion. You kind of playing Where Are They Now with kind of some former NRL players that you might have been cheering for back in the day. But the other point would be that there's two more NRL teams on the way, so we have to fill those rosters. Obviously, there's going to be plenty of players moving from other clubs in Australia and New Zealand, but you'd imagine there's going to be plenty of more Englishmen on the way as well. So yeah, I think whatever we can do to support the game all around the world is a big plus for me.
100%, mate. It'd be an interesting idea. I'd like to see it. That sort of leads into Moana Pacifica and the Super Rugby. Now, they're not going to be around for too much longer. I heard there's going to be a bit of a vacuum, that sort of Tongan Samoan talent. Maybe potentially for the NRL to sort of jump in there and take advantage of how the International Rugby League game is going at the moment. So do you think that could be a help? Would that be good or bad for fans? The NRL can sort of make even more leeways. We had a big part on this podcast last week about a second New Zealand team. We got flamed by rugby union fans when I put a bit of a reel up from our guest Josh. Shout out to Josh for saying that they could kill off rugby in New Zealand with a second team. Big call. But that vacuum, would that be good or bad for fans?
Yeah, huge call trying to really land a knockout blow on rugby union in New Zealand. I was over there not long ago. My brother lives in Dunedin. It's his birthday. Shout out you.
Shout out. Happy
Um,
birthday.
my brother lives in Dunedin, and one in every five people is wearing Highlanders merch. And that's across the different. I think they have five teams, and they're all beloved, and that's at the Super Rugby level, which is kind of an afterthought sometimes in Australia, at least compared to rugby league at the moment. We do have a World Cup on the way in Union, so that'll generate some interest. But as far as all those players are welcome to come and play NRL. It's not always a success when a player kind of goes between codes. Sometimes it is. We've had plenty of players make it work. Brad Thorne is obviously a legend of both codes. As a Broncos fan, you'd remember him, or maybe it's a little before your
No, legend.
time.
I remember Brad Thorne, mate. He played for everywhere. Did he play for Australia Kangaroos and All Blacks?
Yes,
Yes.
and All Blacks, yes. Yeah, that which is a bit
What a
strange.
combo.
But yeah, I mean, we've seen how the Pacifica players have just taken the NRL to a next level. Obviously, at the Tigers, Benji is the only New Zealand coach and Polynesian coach, and there's a strong kind of Pacifica element to our side. You got to be happy about. He was talking about wanting to see them get into more leadership roles as well. Obviously, Luai and Api are our captains, so and Luai really seems to be the heart and soul of the club at the moment. If you saw the preseason stuff that the Tigers were putting out, really bonding sessions that kind of centered around him, and he was just geeing everyone up. So yeah, there may be some Moana players that we can have a look at, especially with new teams coming in. I think trying to destroy rugby union completely. That may not happen, but we'll see. I'm old enough to remember when the Wallabies were kind of the top team, or maybe they were right up there in terms of the national teams, and that's kind of faded off. So you know, there's no reason why that couldn't reverse, especially with the World Cup on the way.
It's going to be very interesting, mate. And yeah, Josh did get flamed in those comments. I think he meant more just trying to take advantage of momentum and that type of thing with the Warriors' success. But yeah, no love out there for Union fans for him, that's for sure. And we'll just one last one, mate. It seems like this new broadcast deal is finally going to meet an end anyway. Peter V'landys and the NRL are ready to start making inroads to put the call out there for the networks to put forward all their deals. Now, we've seen it happen in America recently with NBA, NFL, how it's splintered just on several different broadcasters and platforms and that type of thing. And the story that keeps getting floated is this could happen to the NRL here in Australia. I think Netflix have ruled themselves out, but that doesn't mean you've still got the likes of Nine and Stan, obviously currently with us in KO Foxtel. You've got Seven, you can't ride out, and then 10 and Paramount, which is also a global, backed by global money. How bad would that be? Good or bad for fans if we were to see some sort of model where, I mean, right now you can get everything on KO. Shout out to KO, our employer, with Foxtel. But if this was to get splintered out, obviously Nine shares at the moment with simulcast and that type of thing. But if you were to say we go to three or even four, how bad would that be?
I agree, Dane. Obviously, we do work in the industry, so maybe we might be a little bit biased. Speaking strictly as a fan, I think I would hate that. I mean, I kind of have an aversion to, oh, what are we signing up for now? We want to watch this. It's on, all of a sudden it's on Amazon, all of a sudden it's on Netflix. Where are we watching it? Turn that on. No, turn that off. I think, yeah, the NFL is obviously the classic. It's spread across all the networks in America. It's too complicated for me. I mean, I know that the game is trying to squeeze every dollar. There's talk about a $4 billion deal, which is astronomical money, and that's their right to kind of do that. But I think strictly as a fan, I don't think I'd enjoy having to, search 5 different apps for the game.
Mate, it'd be an absolute nightmare if that were to happen. I know with football, we've seen it in Australia where it was spread out when there was Optus and Paramount Stan, and it's sort of consolidated a little bit now. But yeah, if that were to happen to the NRL, I mean, I know we're employed by them as well, but the fact that you can catch one sport like the NRL all on one place. For any sport, that should be the case. I don't know if the government can get involved with siphoning, but it should never get to the stage where you're talking about three different streamers to watch one single sport. Like, if it ever gets to that level, geez, we've got a real problem. We've seen petrol go through the roof and cost of living, mate.
Mm,
How much more
that's
can
right.
can you reap football fans? I mean, the humble little NRL fans that we are, Will, the little sport and the played only on the east coast of Australia. How much more can they squeeze us, mate?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm old enough to remember the Premier League being on Foxtel, and that disappeared, and I basically was like, well, I just won't watch it then. I'm not even going to bother finding out where it's moved to. Obviously, the diehards are going to want to watch these things, but you risk losing a few fans, I guess, along the way if they're plugged into one certain provider. And what is there? If there's 7 or 8 different providers and they're charging 30, 40 a month, all of a sudden that's a huge cost if you have to sign up for all of them just to watch the footy.
Yeah, mate. Let's really hope that's not going to be the case heading into the future. It's going to be very interesting to see. Will, thank you very much for joining us on season ticket holders, mate. I'm sorry the robot doesn't think that you can make the finals this year, and neither do I, unfortunately. But at least we got to watch a classic game. Campbelltown, great stadium. Leichhardt obviously is right up there as well, and you've got the passion of Benji and a very exciting team on your hands in 2026. So I wish you and the team and everyone who has to witness you watching games live in Fox Sports News. All the luck for the rest of the year.
Thanks very much, Dane. Yeah, it's been great to have a chat with you. And if you want to tell that robot to meet me in the car park, I'm sure I could take him.
I'll start typing that right now as we speak and do the sign up. Will Fry, thank you very much for all your help and joining us on the show. Good luck to the Tigers, and thank you everyone for supporting us on season ticket holders. You can find us on YouTube for a like and subscribe, or hop on Spotify and Apple, give us a 5-star rating. Everything helps, guys. Thanks again. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.